This is The Green Room, and I am delighted this afternoon to have a Wichita born and raised composer, Alex Wakim, with us visiting about his latest project, which takes place in Wichita. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Caitlin. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we are excited that you're here, and I'm anxious to talk to you and pick your brain and learn about your career as a classical music composer and film composer. And the current project you're involved in is a live retelling of your album, Dust and Ions. What should we expect when we attend this performance next weekend?
Totally. So it's indeed a live concert based around the album. So it's the album and all of the music there, but there's also 40 minutes of original music, of new music that's going to be on top of that. There's a beautiful dance by the Regina Konjowski Dance Company. And then I found this amazing poet to write original poetry that reflects on all of the themes of the album. So it's going to be a real theatrical experience, mixing together dance, poetry, and of course the music of the album and new music as the centerpiece.
So the performances are next weekend, September 17th and 18th at the Wichita Center for the Performing Arts. And I was reading that you have members of the Wichita Grand Opera, Wichita Symphony Orchestra as well involved in this project. And you had musicians of the Wichita Symphony helping you record the album last year.
Yes, absolutely. The pandemic had obviously a lot of really challenging moments, but there was a blessing of me being in Wichita because I got to reconnect with all of these amazing musicians right at home in Wichita. And so we recorded with a bunch of amazing symphony musicians, the original album. And it's great because a lot of them are actually coming back to do this performance, a lot of the original members.
Are these pandemic compositions?
Most all of them are actually. They are indeed pandemic compositions.
So Dust and Ions, this isn't a first album of yours. You have works that could be heard in documentaries and short films. You're no stranger to composition. This is your career. Tell us a bit about your work as a film composer.
Totally. I love writing film music. It's such an exciting process working with the director to figure out the specific sound of the film, the specific sound of a character, how it develops throughout the film. I've been living in New York for a few years now, and I went to the NYU program and I met some amazing film directors there, amazing collaborators. And film music is kind of the center of really everything I do musically. And a lot of this music and a lot of the way I approached the album and this live concert actually have to do with the process of film music, of finding a character, finding a theme and developing that theme. And so I love writing for film. It's really such a joy to get to do it.
So when you were composing these pieces a year ago, in your mind, did you have that one day they would be performed with a dance company, with live slam poetry, or did this come after the fact?
I would have really loved to do a live rendition of some sort, or even like an album listening party or something. But because of the nature of COVID, it wasn't really possible. But I kind of always envisioned doing something live with it, but with poetry and the dance and all of that. I had no idea. These things just kind of appear. You get inspired at some point. It's like, okay, cool.
We heard a piece of yours a few months ago during Wichita Symphony Orchestra's Wellness Wednesday series. We had an opportunity to listen to one of your compositions. Is it? And remind me, what is the name of that we heard with a symphony a few months ago?
Yeah. Well, we were trying to think. Was it helplessness or
helplessness and hopefulness? I think was the theme that day.
One or the other. We didn't really know, but the audience kind of helped us out with how they felt hopeful, I think.
Did they help you choose a title for that work?
They did. Honestly, I haven't really titled it yet, which is
your untitled work we heard on the Wednesday Wellness series with the Wichita Symphony Orchestra, and we saw your face, and you talked a bit about that with Holly Mulcahy. You are no stranger to Wichita. Where'd you go to high school?
Northwest High School, Wichita Northwest.
You're a Northwest graduate, and had you been raised in Wichita your life?
Yeah. Born and raised in Wichita, and I'm very thankful, really, truly thankful to the schools, to the Wichita Public Schools for the opportunities they gave me. I had a lot of beautiful opportunities to explore, writing music, putting on concerts, and that's one of the reasons that a portion of the proceeds of this show are going back to this Education Edge Fund. It's a Wichita Public Schools fund to purchase music instruments for the district for kids who can't afford.
We'll dive into that in just a couple of moments about ticket proceeds and the charities you've chosen for those to go towards. But first of all, I want us to take a couple moments and listen to a track from your Dust and Ions album. And this is a piece that will be heard next weekend. A track from Dust and Ions called Fireflies in Kansas. Wow. You can hear, not knowing a thing about you, I think somebody would listen to that and go, that person's a film composer. You can hear, I can imagine entire scenes in my head.
Good.
This is the Green Room on Radio Kansas. We are talking to Alex Wakim, who is a Wichita born and raised and Northwest High alum. And he is a musician, a pianist, right? A trained pianist. And classical composer and film composer. And he is coming back to Wichita tomorrow to help prepare Dust and Ions live experience, a live exploration of his album, Dust and Ions. And it will be featuring musicians from both the Wichita Symphony Orchestra and Wichita Grand Opera. It is at the Wichita Center for Performing Arts, September 17th and 18th. Let's quickly let people know how they can get their tickets, Alex, before we move on.
Totally, yes. At the Wichita Grand Opera website, they're helping us with ticketing. So you just go to wichitagrandopera.org, and then there's a ticket link right up there.
And who all is involved besides our local musicians? Who else is coming in to help with this?
Totally. I'm actually bringing a really good friend and amazing fellow composer, Juan Dusan. He's going to come play a really cool electronic piano synth thing. And I asked him to also write a piece specifically for this. So we'll have one piece that's not mine. And then we have this amazing poet, Yara Schreeb. She recorded the poetry, and so we're going to be using those recordings. So she's going to be pretty much tuning in from Boston. And then the rest is all local people, which is great.
When dealing with the dancers and the poet, do you send them recordings of your works and then let them just be inspired however they will? I mean, have you listened to the poetry? Have you seen any of the dance rehearsals yet?
Right. No, it's been a nicely collaborative process, I sent the poet my album in my first email, and she listened to all of it, which is very, very sweet of her. And she listened to a lot of it. We had great conversations and a lot of nice collaborations, but really their first ideas are always amazing. And the dancers are doing some beautiful, beautiful things inspired by the music. So I am involved, but I try to also let them just really let their voice sing.
You have chosen two different charities for the proceeds of your ticket sales to go towards. Both of them very near and dear to you. Explain them to us.
Totally. Yes. So the first one is the Education Edge Gift Fund. It is with the Wichita Public Schools, and they use money from that to purchase music instruments for the district every year to circulate amongst kids who need them. And so it's very important to me because music education was such a big part of my life, and having the support from the district and from the family and all that, extremely important. And then the other charity is the Kids First Association in Lebanon, and they help with pediatric oncology care. And they've been doing it for a while, but lately, because of everything going on in Lebanon, they are having to use their resources to purchase treatments because the country is not importing treatments. or
Mm.
medicine. So they have to import their own, which is really insane to think about. So that is the other charity, and that's where that money is going.
Are you Lebanese?
I am. My parents came from Lebanon in the 70s and 80s.
Very, two very important charities for you, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. So, we thought it would be really excellent if Alex played for us one of his compositions right now, live over the air for us. This is not a recording. This is Alex himself. And in a moment of true transparency, I have to let you know that Alex is not even here. He is in his Manhattan apartment in New York City. He does not fly in to Wichita till tomorrow. So we're calling upon our good old friend technology to make this happen. And tell us a bit about what you're playing for us, and then have at it.
Totally, yes. So the blessing about having the album as kind of a centerpiece is that I have all these themes that I've developed within the album that I get to explore in other ways. So I'll just play really, really quickly. The main theme is this. That's the main theme of the whole album. And I've been getting to work it in a lot of different ways. And so I don't know what prompted me, but there was some need for a waltz. So I took this theme and I made it into this waltz. So I'm playing a variation on that that gets a little bit more wild in the second act of the show. So, yeah.
And what's the title of that?
Waltz of Corruption. So it's taking that theme and kind of corrupting it.
Corruption.
Yes. And this is the variations. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about your influences. So growing up and making the transition from being a performer, a pianist, the transition into composition, and more specifically film. Who were your greatest influences or your inspirations? What film composers did you turn to time and time again?
Yeah, great question. I mean, Alexander Desplat, there's something, every time I cried during a movie, I was crying, I was watching, what was it? Benjamin Button on a plane to Miami, like several years ago. I was literally crying in this plane. People were looking at me, they were all very concerned. And I was like, who wrote the score for this? And of course it was Desplat. Every time I cried,
Right.
it was always Desplat. And so he was a big influence. And I love the storytelling aspect of it. You're telling a story through the music, concert music is also, there's a lot of really amazing stuff, but I just, for some reason, I connected always with this greater purpose of telling the story of a film through music. And so I did a lot of piano, but I was always curious about whose name is on the top right of that sheet music, like who brought this thing from nothing into existence. And I was really fascinated by that. And so all of those influences kind of led me step by step to really be inspired. In musical theater, I wrote the musical American in Beirut, and just like telling stories through music. That's it.
And you have also composed chamber music, just full orchestral music. I mean, are there other, do you want to branch out and do even more? Like, is there a concerto in your future? Or are you completely content? This is your baby. This is what you found. It is film music through and through.
I think as a composer, there's always a relationship with different forms of music. And even as a film composer, I've always been really careful to still do projects for myself and to do my artist projects where I am just writing the music I want to write. So I would love to do a piano concerto down the road, and, symphonic projects and all sorts of different projects and collaborations that are not related to film. But at the end of the day, I also always want to go back and keep working on some beautiful films. So.
Dust and Ions, an exploration of sound, life, and motion with Alex Wakim. You can experience this next weekend, September the 17th and 18th at 7:30 at the Wichita Center for the Performing Arts. And tickets can be purchased through the Wichita Grand Opera website, which is wichitagrandopera.org, if I'm correct. If your curiosity about Alex has been piqued, you can go to alexwakim.com. That is WAKIM.com, and learn about Alex and hear many more examples of his music, an opportunity to buy his Dust and Ions album on that website as well. Now, very quickly, run down one more time who all is joining you next weekend, both our local musicians and those coming in from out of town.
Okay, let me find the list, Joel. Actually, we have amazing players from the Wichita Symphony. There's a orchestral group of like 8 different musicians. My buddy Juan Dusan coming in from New York City. Regina's amazing dancers. There's 5 beautiful dancers. And then Yara is going to be speaking in from Boston pretty much with some beautiful narration.
And a portion of the proceeds from the ticket sales will go to, go right ahead and remind us.
Yeah, the Kids First Association in Lebanon, and then the Education Edge Gift Fund.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about next weekend. And it seems like such a wonderful thing to do. And, you know, when the music was playing earlier, I asked Alex, you know, how did this happen? You know, how did, you know, why are you coming to do this? How did this happen? And he said, I needed something to do. And I love that. I really do think that some of our most precious artistic collaborations and experiences are born out of just needing to do something. And congratulations on what's about to happen. And I just think it sounds wonderful. Thank you for being with us, Alex.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much for having me.